Hello everyone, this is Mukundan Ragavan, and this video we are going to see predicate function from Java and its use cases from Selenium. Let's understand from the scratch what is predicate function. A predicate function is a functional interface from the Java util function package. And obviously, functional interface is nothing but an interface that contains only one abstract method. And today we are going to see the predicate interface. So in predicate interface, you will have only one abstract method and its return type would be Boolean and method name is test. Then it represents a function which takes only one argument and returns a Boolean value, either true or false. Either true or false can be decided based on some condition internally you implement. Once you create the predicate function, this predicate function can be passed as an argument to the other methods, or even it can be written from other methods. Here you can see the simple example. I can create the predicate function by using the predicate and the type of input I am getting inside. For example, which type of input I am going to give inside my function. It is a type of string here, and I am mentioning the name as is empty. Obviously, whenever you use the Boolean function, you will be asking the question is true, is empty, is null. The same way I am going to mention is empty, and I'm going to give a functional implementation. In my case, I'm not going to implement from scratch. I'm going to refer a method which is available inside the string. So in order to mention the method from existing class or interface, you can mention the class or interface name followed by the method reference operator, which is a double colon followed by the actual method name. Then later point, when you want to execute actual predicate function, which is empty in our case, we can use by calling isEmpty.test and whatever the input we want to pass. Obviously, this input should be type of string because when we created the predicate function, it is mentioned as a string. And internally, the isEmpty method will be called and it will return the value for us based on the input. Now, when are we using this one and why do we use that? Basically, when you use the collections in order to filter some of the elements from the collection, especially from the stream, you can use the predicate function so that this predicate function will be the deciding factor whether it has to fall in the next level of stream or it has to be filtered out. Even this predicate function can be used to validate something whether it is valid or not based on the condition. And obviously, this is one of the conditional logic. If it passes, it will go to the next level or it will return as a true, or if it is negative, then it will return as a false. How to implement that? A simple explanation here. Same like greater than 10. It's not necessary you need to always use the existing functions. Even you can create your own implementation when we create the predicate function. Here I'm creating the predicate function and the input type would be integer and the name is greater than. And once the input comes n, I'm checking whether n is greater than 10 or not. And it's our responsibility to make sure the output gives true or false because we are creating the predicate function. Then when you try to execute that method, you will call that method greater than dot test and you need to give the input. Input, obviously it will be the integer type as we created. Then if you give the 5, the output would be false. If you give that 15, which is greater than 10, then the output would be true. Now we have understood very basic level of predicate function. Let's try to understand how can we use this predicate function in Selenium use cases. In Selenium, very obvious that most of the times we will be using the is empty, the element is visible, the element is clickable, and so on. How to use that? Let's go to our main function again. Initial code will be the boilerplate code, which will be just initializing the driver and open the driver. And by using the driver, we are just navigating to the sourcedemo.com. And by using a XPath, we are trying to see whether it is visible, whether it has the text. And whatever the text we are providing, it will be compared with the element text. Now here again, I am using the interface Selenist, which is created by ourselves. And if you get into this method, you can clearly understand it is getting the driver, XPath, and the predicate. So obviously, when you call that as a true and element, you need to give your own predicate function. Either you can create your own predicate function on the go, or you can use it from the Selenium predicates. So rather than creating every time by ourselves, I have created the separate class Selenium predicates, and you can find all possible predicates, especially for the Selenium. For example, is element present, is element visible, is element clickable, and is element has some text based on our input. The beauty about this Selenium predicates is it covers all the basic things. You don't need to type or create the lambda functions or any functions again and again. So this is where we will use the reusability. And one more good point is when you try to log in something, when you try to make the log files, So you can use some implementation here there itself. For example, when I check if the element has some text or not, I can just make the system.out.println.statement, or even I can log into some log files, or even I can implement my own logic when we look for any kind of element attributes or element text. For example, even I can create element has text with the length of 10, or based on my business scenario, I can create any kind of predicates inside my Selenium predicates. When you try to use it, it will be very simple. You will pass your driver, you will pass your XPath, and you will just use the existing Selenium predicates. Then in Selenist function, you can see what are the things we have done, or it will get the driver XPath and the predicate function. Before executing the test method, it will check for the element to be available. Then it will execute predicate test element and it will asset as well. So that again, you don't need to execute the asset true statement. So basically, if you go to the main, you basically use selenist dot asset true on element and you will pass the basic inputs, which is driver and XPath, and you will use any of the Selenium predicates. Let's execute and see the output. Here you can see the output. Purposely I have given the text and the actual text as a different ones so that you can see the message here and it is failing for the assertion error. So that by using this way of coding, we can totally make the modularization and give the total freedom to the user, whichever the Selenium predicates they can use it. And obviously, this will be the standard method wherever you want to use to assert something on the element level. In the Boolean state, for example, true or false, you can use the same method and you can have the freedom to decide your own logic to decide whether it is true or false. So to summarize everything, we have seen basic predicate demo. So how the predicate can be used and what is the logic. Basically, we will give one input and this function will be responsible to give the output as either true or false based on our own implementation. And we have seen the Selenium predicates, whichever the common predicates can be created for Selenium, we have already created under the class called Selenium predicates. In main function, we are just passing the Selenium predicates based on our scenario. And inside this implementation, you have already predicate.test so that it will be obviously executed and it will be looking for true. So this way we have understood the predicate and the use cases of the Selenium predicates. And this is all about this video, and always be a rainbow in others cloud.